All right, I'm going to start off by welcoming everybody to our April 27th Best Practice webinar. Today we're going to talk about data sharing and all of the wonderful things that come from this. Our presentation team today is very big and diverse, and we love that. Today you're going to hear a little bit from me. You are also going to hear from Caitlin Schmidt, who is the chair of our Evaluation and Sustainability Committee. You'll hear from Vic, and then you're also going to hear from Ron and Rusty today. So it should be a pretty diverse call. Hope you get a lot of information out of this. And with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen. We'll go ahead and get this PowerPoint going. Maybe. There we go. All right. So right out of the gate, we're going to do some welcome and introductions this morning. I, like you guys, are all probably getting just a little bit burned out on these Zoom meetings. So I thought maybe we'd try to start off by having a little bit of fun here. So I'd like everybody to think of a number between 1 and 5. And you can jot it down or you can just keep it in your head. But I'll give you about 5 seconds to get your number between 1 and 5. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. So if we're talking data sharing today, so we're going to share some data about ourselves. So if you chose the number 1 in the chat box, would you please tell us the color of your eyes? If you chose the number 2, please tell us your favorite season. So spring, summer, fall, or winter. Or, I suppose you could put Iowa, because I think we have all 4 in the same day sometimes. If you chose the number 3, tell us your favorite children's book. If you chose number 4, please tell us your least favorite household chore. And number 5, please tell us your favorite pizza topping. And if you'd like, you can certainly also unmute and simply share verbally as well. But again, use that chat if you'd like. So. All right, so what do I got here? Vic has hazel eyes. Sylvia's favorite season is spring. Caitlin's favorite season is fall. I got to agree with you. I'm kind of a fall person too. Virginia says Sleeping Beauty. Trisha's got hazel eyes too. That's kind of cool. Billy likes spring. Emily, If You Give a Mouse a Cookie. That's such a great children's book. So, I hope I don't say your name wrong. Monica says Supreme Pizza.
Manika.
Julie, Manika. Yes, I will get that. I promise I will get that one day here. Julie says winter. Julie, really? That surprises me. So, Beth says cleaning the bathroom and toilet is her least favorite chore. Kate has gray eyes. That's kind of cool too. Nikki likes that Canadian bacon and pineapple. Oh, Nikki, way to stir the pot this morning. You know there's going to be like a whole debate about pineapple on pizza now. However, I'm with you. So, Lynn likes summer. Julie says bring on the snow. Oh, Julie. I think maybe you need to come live at my house for a while because I don't know if you would feel very good about snow out here in the country. So, all right. Well, thank you. I hope you had a little bit of fun with that. I actually chose number 3 off the top of my head. And one of my favorite children's books as of today is a book by the Fan brothers, and it's called The Night Gardener. So do yourself a favor and check that out because it's a wonderful story about community engagement and pride in your neighborhood. So thank you. So go ahead and advance our slide here. So today we're talking data sharing and best practices connected to that. So really the reasons that we have data sharing are very numerous. I narrowed it down to a list of 4 today. When we have strong data sharing practices, it means that we have stronger data. We're able to better tell our story and prove what we say we want to prove by having those high quality data components. Again, the second bullet here is that proof and being able to document those outcomes. back in the day, when I first started writing grants 20-something years ago, you used to be able to put in an application to do a program, and it was really almost enough that you could just simply say what you wanted to do, and then the funder would be like, sure, here's some money for it. Now, we know that many of those funders are looking for that hard and fast proof. How many kids do you want to serve, and what is the true outcome you want to get to with those kids? And you can't prove those outcomes if you don't have that data. By having access to data and sharing it, it also gives you the ability to address your shortcomings. And again, sometimes we get in that mindset where perhaps we think this is a weakness, or it's something that we want to maybe hide from somebody. But if you are using data and using it appropriately, you should be able to think about what your area of shortcoming is and develop a plan to address that. You know, that's kind of how we use that. And then again, the fourth bullet here is funding, and we've talked about that. You know, so when you can show quality outcomes, when you can show quality data, you are better aligning yourself for funding moving forward. So today we're going to be referencing a data sharing template, and I'm going to turn it over to Caitlin in just a second here because she's going to take this next part. Or actually, Caitlin, is this your part?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, it is. Okay, so let me turn it over to Caitlin now.
Sure.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And I'm Caitlin Schmidt. I'll just do a reintroduction from St. Mark Youth Enrichment. So we're a community-based organization. That's sometimes helpful to know. I think we have a mix of both schools and community organizations on the call. And the data sharing template was something that kind of came up, I think, in the evaluation and sustainability committee. And then the awesome people at Iowa After School Alliance put together this template. And so that first bullet point has the link to that. If you want to access it, it'll be available on the website, and I'll be pulling it up here shortly. So we'll actually have it on the screen to look through. And so as community organization schools, like this template would be used for both types of scenarios. Obviously, community organizations have a lot of requests of data upon schools because they have their student information systems that houses all of this awesome data that we need to access to report for grants and other things. Schools, obviously, if you have partnerships to other organizations, this template will also be a resource for you if you don't have any existing agreements in place. So Crystal really shared like overall, like data's awesome, right? And then this tool specifically, I think will be really useful in this next year as we are looking forward towards new GEPRA measures. It'll be good to communicate with our schools on some of those slight changes and new information that will need to be gathered. Personally, accountability, having it written down in black and white kind of language with specific dates. I think it's a helpful tool for that. And I know with our school district, our person that we're working with is retiring. So we don't have necessarily this agreement in place yet. We're going to have it, and then that'll just help for the transition between different people so that it's clearly communicated what expectations there are on both sides. So with that, we'll just dive in and kind of do an overview of the actual document. And I think Crystal is going to either let me share so I can scroll through, or there we go. Okay, just give me a second.
Okay, and Caitlin, you should be able to share your screen.
All right, so you're all seeing a Word document? Yes, okay. So it's laid out pretty nicely. You'll see that there are kind of some color coding examples. So it's clear that there's a school district and then the organization. So depending on which lane you're coming from, you would fill out accordingly. And then each area has an example given, so that it's really helpful. You might have to put in a lot of your own specific information, but there's definitely placeholders for you to kind of just plug and play with different information. And then let's see, we'll just get into the main meat of it. So the first thing is the purpose. You want to be able to be clear about what the data is going to be used for, what types of things you're measuring in a more broader sense. So measuring students' growth in reading and math in all these areas. And I think here would be, since we're all coming from 21st century, laying that out as well, that you will be using this data as a requirement for your grant. I think that kind of puts some, gravitas to the agreement that this is a requirement for your federal grant. And then, let's see. Yeah, academic grades, proficiency. So you would want to kind of list overall the areas of student growth that you're looking for. Duration of the agreement, it's pretty straightforward. I think you're going to have to work closely. If you're an organization that's working with the school district, your school district might have very specific ideas of what a duration. It could be maybe the length of the grant. Maybe this is something that you'll have to re-sign annually. The example given is one that would kind of cover, the length of the grant, which would be ideal so that you don't have to kind of keep signing this. But I know that our school district likes to have more of an annual basis of agreements in place. So that one is pretty straightforward as far as just putting in a date. Description of data. So this is where you'll have to be very specific and kind of laying out all the different data points that are going to be requested, and including variable names, descriptions of the data, what format you need it in, and the type of security needed to transfer the information. While there is more about that further down of the specific security stuff, listing out every single objective or percentage of students that improved in reading, like bulleting out very specifically how you want that data, number of office referrals, or increase or decrease of office referrals. All those things would be listed here. So this is one where obviously the GEPRA measures are the ones that you're going to want included here, as well as any local objectives if you have any ones that are specific to you as a grantee individually. And then you'll also probably want to include, I think it's listed here as well, the frequency in which you want the data to repeat that here as well. Like how frequently are you going to ask for it? Some might have summer programs that you need different data for that. So if you're going to be requesting at the end of summer, make that clear as well. And then aggregate versus individual data. I know that Vic is going to be covering some on FERPA a little bit later on, but for 21st century, we only need aggregate data in a sense to know just the total percentage of students. So if you for any reason need individual data, that might bring about some more requirements. I know that St. Mark in the past has asked for individual data to track different things like income levels and race, and to be able to break down data even further. So there might be some more requirements that you'll have to coordinate with your school district or community organization to have maybe individual parents sign off on things as well. Okay, data access. So this is more of the how is the data going to be shared between the organization and the school district. And is it just going to be through email, through maybe a spreadsheet? A suggestion would be maybe to have an encrypted spreadsheet so that you have a password that's known amongst the two organizations, and then is a little bit more secure than just transferring, especially if you have individual names. Flash drives, I think, is another example given if you have a physical way to access the data. And then frequency again is here, suggested to repeat here. How often will you need to be communicating back and forth to request the data or provide the data? And then here's a longer example of that, transferring when and how, having some language that's clear about confidentiality. Obviously, you don't want to, I know when we log into 21 APR, there's a big warning, like don't leave your screen unattended, making sure that any data that's being transferred is handled responsibly and confidentially as well. And that kind of reiterates in data security, describe many measures about transferring, accessing, and storing. So having clear practices in place that either data will be protected with passwords, or what you'll do after you've used the data. Is there going to be a need to destroy it or delete files? You'll want to have that figured out as well. Termination of the agreement. I think this one is kind of just a standard thing. Yeah, so this is if for any reason the agreement is no longer needed, or the term of the grant is ended or something like that, you would just need to figure out how that data is going to be handled. Then afterwards, there's suggestions here about deleting from hard drives, shredding if it's hard copies, however that might look for organization. And then the signature pages are kind of the last obvious piece that you would then have. So I think I should pause here and see if there's any questions or comments on the actual template as
I'm
is.
gonna send Jane to class so we can go to special. Okay, go ahead, I'm right here. Sure, Aggie.
Julie, you were breaking up a little bit. We couldn't quite hear your question.
Yeah, I didn't catch anything.
Julie, are you there? All right, I wonder if maybe she didn't just hit a button accidentally or something, so.
Yeah.
So again, if you have questions, please feel free to unmute, or you can drop those in the chat. This obviously is for a community-based organization. Oh, Julie just says she didn't ask anything, okay. But I would also encourage you to just inquire as to your internal practices too. If you are a school district, a grant holder as a school district and within your district, a lot of times these things are just kind of assumed or things of that nature, but it may be a good idea for you to think about inquiring as to what happens when your grant does come to an end. What happens to that data, or do you have to archive it in any particular way as compared to the district's policies and procedures as well? So, any questions for Caitlin today? All right. So Caitlin, please, thank you for that.
Yeah.
And if you don't mind turning back the screen to me, I'll go ahead and pull up that next and final slide that you'll be talking about.
And one more thing, as you do that, I was gonna just add on to what you said about, both school districts and community organizations using the document. I feel like, I've had communication where like, we're gonna request data these times of year, and that's all the agreement that we've had. And so I feel like this is going to be extremely beneficial for both ends, because it's always, I can't imagine, like, as a school district, all the requests that come in and having something that's a little bit more uniform so that it can be streamlined. I think it was very well and thoughtfully put together. So thank you for the work that you guys done on that.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. And so when this was created, it was pulled from a lot of existing resources. So if you have maybe some more unique needs, Crystal put together this list of other examples of different data sharing pieces. So that's just there as a resource. I'm sure the slides will be available to have clickable links for that. And then evaluation and sustainability committee. So this is kind of where this came from. And the evaluation and sustainability committee is meeting again on June 1st at 9 a.m. And some of the work we'll be doing is going to be supporting on the new GEPRA measures, maybe helping with some new tools that might be needed in addition to data sharing. So if that at all, I think we have quite a few overlap of people who are already on that call consistently, but I would invite you to join in, and especially if you would like some more resources like this it helps to have your input and feedback in developing them. So just that plug.
Yeah.
Then.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Caitlin. So yes, so just a reminder, if that is not the committee that you currently participate on, it is absolutely fine. And you're welcome to join any committee call at any time during, if there's something that's interesting to you. So you can find when those committee meetings are going to be on the website at 21cclc.com. And if you go to the committees tab, that will tell you. And then of course, the other way to find out is to shoot me an email, and I'm happy to let you know when those meetings are. So any questions for Caitlin this morning? All right. So with that being said, we're going to turn it over to Vic now, because of course, anytime you start accessing data, we have to think about FERPA. So Vic's going to give us an overview of FERPA this morning.
Okay, I do want to add this, that, we do everything possible to make our meetings accessible, especially our committee calls. We use the same phone number for all the committee calls. So if you've got that one number and you're in like family engagement and you're interested in attending evaluation, it's the same number. So we're doing everything possible so that you can participate on this. Okay.
I'm sorry, Vic, before you get started, we do have a question in the chat, and Christine is wondering if we need to keep track of our kids and staff that had COVID or had to quarantine due to an expose.
That's not a question I have the authority to answer.
Okay. I think each district has a policy in place, Christine. So you'll maybe just want to double check with your administration as to how they're expecting your out of school time program to handle that. But thank you for that question.
Issue, yes. Okay, FERPA. Everybody probably has a poster in their home about FERPA because it's, protecting the privacy of children. However, we have an exemption for our program. We're a federal title program, and we are authorized to get data for auditing and evaluation, and for filling out the APR, which basically is an audit that we report to Congress. And I think a lot of our issues with this come out of misunderstandings and communication, because maybe a district person doesn't realize that we're a federal title program and we are allowed this data. So we are very diligent on protecting the student data. And for our federal reports for this program, we only need aggregated data, and we don't even require the student identifiable portion of that data. But you should also have a data sharing agreement in place. Okay, next slide. Also, your data person at the district may not be aware that their superintendent has signed an assurance with an affidavit that they will provide data to us. And the building principal has signed this as well, that they're going to provide this federal data. So if there's a problem, think about how happy that superintendent would be to get a non-compliance letter in email. So like I said, if you have a problem with getting your data, make sure that you contact me. Now, Tim Glenn and I, we had a meeting this Monday about the data. We were looking at these new GEPR measures, and really he can't pull these anymore the way they're constructed. There's like a formula, and it's exclusively going to rely on that district data person and that student information system to get everything that we need to report. with the exception of that survey about student engagement. Okay, next one. Okay, so starting in 2022, the data that we report is going to change, and we're going to start collecting the data collecting the new data this summer and in the fall of 2021, because we want to get ready. We're always reporting a year behind. So we need to provide the district with a list of the student names who are the participants in the program, and also they're going to need those new GEPRA measures. Next slide. And here they are. Now notice how there are a percentage of students in grades 4 through 8 participating in the program who demonstrated growth in reading and English on the state assessments. So, you know, that's real narrow picture, but it's a lot better than proficiency, because a lot of our kids, they might be a couple of grades behind and they might go up a whole grade, which is tremendous in terms of growth, but maybe they're still not proficient. This is going to show that we are making a difference incrementally for kids, that instead of making a huge leap, that just because they're in the program, they're instantly going to be proficient, that we are making steps in the right direction, progress because of that growth measure. Okay. And then the second measure is through grades 7 and 8 and 10 through 12. So if you're an elementary program, you're not going to report on this at all. But if you have secondary students, you will. And they want to know those who attended the program with a prior year unweighted GPA of less than 3 who demonstrated an improved GPA. And basically, these are grades. So then the third measure is those who attended the program who had a school day attendance rate of at or below 90% in the prior school year and who demonstrated an improved attendance rate in the current school year. So, you know, those are things that they can easily calculate and provide you in a report, and then you can upload those into the APR. Okay, next slide.
Vic, we
Yes.
have a quick question regarding GEPRA Measure 2. What about the ninth graders?
We don't worry about them. The feds, for whatever reason, they eliminated ninth grade. I hate to put extra burden and say, please, can we count ninth grade for, you know, whatever reason. I can always ask them why they took the ninth grade out, but there may be some kind of statistical reason. I don't know. Okay, the next GEPRA measure 4 is the percentage of students in grades 1 through 12. So that's all the kids pretty much except kindergarten who attended the program and who experienced a decrease in school suspensions compared to the previous year. And thankfully we're not, you know, reporting kindergarten because, you know, sometimes those kids, it's just a, you know, a phase. I'd hate to have kindergarten behavior incidents, you know, bringing our measure down. But anyway, we've seen this happen, that in kids in the program, they start to get excited about learning, and they are, you know, they're no longer acting out because they are having a good experience for a change. So I think that's going to be a measure right there where, you know, our sites are going to shine. Okay, the final measure, percentage of students in grades 1 through 5 who participated in the program, who demonstrated improvement in teacher or program staff reporting, engagement, and learning. The measure can be done via survey. So this is really the only measure that they're not going to be able to pull that you're going to have to do on your own. And I've included a little thing here about the background of the GEPRA measures, and also that this report goes to Congress so that the data person can understand that this is very important. It's not something they can blow off. And there's a Word document. Well, it's actually a PDF for you to share. And I think Crystal's going to have that posted. That has this in there, but it's explaining the whole process with FERPA, where we are as a 21st century program, that we are entitled to that data, although we only need aggregated data, and that, you know, already the superintendent has signed their agreement to provide this data. So, you know, all of a sudden now they can no longer say, well, I'm the person in charge of the data and you don't need access. You know, I'd like to see them try that, saying that to the superintendent. So we just want to clear up these misunderstandings. In the past, you know, we had a couple of incidents where Tim was able to get the data when we had those communication log jams, but that's not going to be possible because of those measures. So we want to be proactive and communicate in advance. And we probably want to send, you know, a copy to the superintendent and say, this is going to be the new data we need.
Yeah. So the document that Vic referenced with the FERPA guidance is actually, it's been combined into the data sharing template, which can be found on that 21cclc.com under the grant info tab. If you need me to send that to you separately, or if you're having trouble finding it, please reach out to me and I'm happy to get you that document then. Vic, anything else to share on this slide?
Well, on the very bottom is the federal statute of that in that document that you just referred to. It cites the federal statute. So if there is a problem, you know, I'll send a nice email and saying, you know, federal statute requires you to provide us with this data. So eliminate any misunderstandings. Now, does anyone have any questions before we move on?
Feel free to unmute, or you can go ahead and drop those into the chat. Okay.
Well, I see one way to
Beth says maybe ninth grade is not included due to 8th is in middle school and 9th is in high school, so GPAs may not show good info with those different classes.
I don't know. That's a good guess. So
Yeah, I suppose it's a possibility. So, okay. Any other questions that we want to address? All right, forward the slides then.
oh, there it is. That's that federal statute.
Mhm. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and move on. So thank you so much for that, Vic. We're now going to turn the presentation over to Ron and Rusty, and they're going to help us make the connection between data sharing and evaluation.
Hello. Yes, good morning. Thank you for inviting us to present some information to you. Just to dovetail along with the data sharing, yes, we get your local evaluations and we do a write-up for each one of the sub-grantees, but we are also sharing all the data from the entire state in a big section of the overall evaluation. So yes, we would like to have all the data and accurately the first time. Again, everything needs to match. example, the APR has to match what's the data in the local evaluation, which has to match the data from the end of year survey. And we do check all that. So if we find discrepancies, that means we have to get back in touch with the evaluator, excuse me, for each one of the sites and find out where the data inaccuracy is and ask them to correct it. And it takes time. So as accurate as it can be to start off with, that's great. One thing we would like to recommend along in this area is to possibly put together a document that has all the information that you use to fill in the APR, the local evaluation, and end of year survey, just to have it handy for yourself and for the local evaluator. Makes life a lot easier, and that way no data gets missed or typed in incorrectly.
And you have that document, don't you, Crystal?
We do. We have a tracking system. However, the document is currently designed for what I'm going to call the current or old GEPRA measure. And Caitlin, feel free to jump on if you'd like, but I believe that's a task that the Evaluation and Sustainability Committee will be working on, correct? Is coming up with a new template or tracking document for the new GEPRA measures.
Yeah, that's correct. We're just updating it to the existing format, and hopefully, I mean, it might evolve a little bit even more to maybe, I know it's very tailored to 21 APR, right? The APR system. So maybe we'll have ways to have some matching connections to the local evaluation. That could be a possibility, but it's in the works currently.
Yeah, absolutely. And yet again, one more reason that if you are interested in seeing what that, or having a voice as to what that template looks like, feel free to join that committee on June 1st. So back to you, Ron and Rusty.
Yes, we're going to go into
Yeah,
these
go to the
different areas a little bit more. So next slide, please.
One of the, there's quantitative data, qualitative data. We try to gather both, what we call the head and the heart. Attendance, funding's based on attendance, so it's very important. Regular attendance matters in the current evaluation, and as Vic has talked about in the past, the new standards go by hours. And Vic and us have had several conversations about the best way for y'all to measure those, and Vic's come up with a really good plan to make it as easy on everybody as possible. One of the things you should talk about in your local evaluation is, because attendance is important, what are you doing to increase your attendance? And some people do a good job on that. Some don't do quite as good. That's okay. Keep going. On academic achievement, we have two things going on. One's GEPRA, the new and the old. And one of the things I wanted to point out, both the new and the old talk about, we're actually reporting the percentage of improvement. But we have to have the raw numbers also, because we have to provide the statewide percentage, and we can only do that with numbers. So you won't be just reporting percentage. Of course, there'll be an evaluation template that'll have that for you to fill in right. One of the things we've run into, and of course, this last year was so weird because of the COVID pandemic, make it your best effort to not leave GEPRA measures blank. This is something that when you look at the federal reports, all they talk about is attendance and GEPRA measures. So we want to make sure, if at all possible, we have data on that. Some people get hung up on, well, the state assessment wasn't available, but the feds give the states leeway to determine what can be used to measure those. And Vic will be happy to work with you to help you figure out a way to use some other measure, grades, local test, something else.
Yeah.
There's a whole list of things you can use. We have our local objectives, and you should, as the program directors, you should make a concerted effort, I would say, to always meet your objectives or make progress. Educators in this particular program, we fall into a trap because we've been taught all through our education career, you want to set objectives that are pretty difficult because you always want to strive to meet them. Unfortunately, some people in the higher ups look at that as, well, they didn't make any of their objectives, so they're not doing too well. In fact, there was a Harvard Review study a few years ago, back in the PPIX days, and these people simply took the national total objectives and the national total met, and it was like 37%. They said, obviously, 21st century doesn't work and should be discontinued, just based on how people rated their objectives. So work on that as much as possible. Don't fall into the trap. Vic's been really good about working with programs that don't meet their objectives on how to adjust those objectives so you can meet them. If you're constantly running into, well, we can't measure this one, you don't need that one anymore. You need to change that to something you can measure, in our opinion. And let's go to the next slide.
Before we do that, we do have a quick question in the box.
Okay.
And I think it just got answered, but I'm going to say it anyway. So Cassie would like to know if the local evaluation template for this year, meaning the 2021 school year, is the same one we utilized for the 1920 school year. And then she's clarifying that it's 21-22 that have the changes to the new GEPRA and the hours. And Vic's response, which Vic, I'm going to ask you to also unmute and just verbalize this too. You're saying that you will update this before September with the new GEPRA measures.
Yes, because they're going to need the new template in September for those new GEPRA measures that we're going to start gathering in the summer.
Right.
Okay. Cassie, if you need to unmute and follow up, please feel free.
Yeah, because I have a new local evaluator, and so that's why I'm like really making sure. So this school year is ending in a month, and so the template that I'm using for the local evaluator to evaluate this 2021 school year is the same form that we utilized last year. But then in September, you'll send us a new form because we start 21-22 using the new measures and knowing that this is what we're tracking. And so then when we do in November of 22, when we write the evaluation for 21-22, it's using those new measures and hours. And
Yes.
right?
Yes,
Okay.
and also let me tell you that in Iowa, if you have a local evaluator and they have a data question, they can email me, or I'll then forward it to Ron and Rusty, or they can email Ron and Rusty directly, because it's included in their contract to, provide the technical assistance on evaluation to the local evaluators.
And I might just plug that.
I
There's
think we're the only
also,
state that does that. I'm sorry.
I might just plug that we also have I think a template for a local evaluator agreement or contract
Oh, yeah,
on the website as well, just as a resource that also came through.
that's, I'm glad you mentioned that.
Yeah, thank you. Any other questions? All right, Ron and Rusty, back to you.
Okay.
All right, now on to partnerships. We have a couple of things to mention here. One is we found a couple of the local evaluations that were on the incorrect reporting form, used the previous one. And so we had to kind of translate some. We need everybody to use the correct partnership type of full, partial, or vendor. And be sure to, and we know it's hard because it's a little subjective at times, but come up with an in-kind value the best you can. It's not always easy. And doesn't have, well, I won't say it doesn't have to be totally accurate, but it's just your best guess sometimes what the value is you're getting from that partnership. And please count all of them. We've had some times in the past where we look at the list in the partnership table, and then we look at the write-up, and there's one or two down there that are written, but they're not listed in the partnership table. So get everybody in there you can, because we want to be able to report overall the numbers of partnerships and how active they are and so forth. So it does help. The parental involvement, I hate to say this, but get a sign-in sheet at each one of them and take attendance. If at all possible, we need the numbers. It's good that, and we understand this past year was horrible for you guys to try to get your 4 required parental involvement events. But sign-in sheets, if nothing else, have somebody count. But if you've got sign-in sheets, you've got everything you need. The local evaluation really needs to have the numbers. That helps us when we write the overall evaluation to report numbers there. One other thing that we've noticed is some people are not necessarily giving us a good report on the parent volunteers, because their parents are just, for the most part, very happy to volunteer and help out in any way they can. Because we've looked at the quotes and some of the reports, and parents are just crazy about this whole program. And please count those parent volunteers and put that in the write-up, the discussion at the end of the parent involvement section.
Thank you.
Anybody
We have
want-
another question. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just asking if we had any other questions.
We do. We have another question in the chat. Christine says she still has more community partners, but due to districts not allowing anyone inside the building this year, how should she reflect that? Vic responded, but again, Vic, I'm going to have you come on verbal and share this for the sake of the recording, that you just reported your situation accurately. Please note when the policy was enacted and when it was ended. So if you care to verbalize that, that would be great.
Okay, well, you know, we cannot control local district decisions, so we can all report how it affects our program. And it's important to say, okay, when was this policy started? When did this policy end? And, you know, you can say that it affected our program because we weren't able to have community partners come in during this, you know, 3-month, 6-month, 9-month period. That is something you could not control. It's not going to be held against you, but we do want you to report it accurately, and it'll filter on up to the feds, who are constantly asking us to report, you know, how is COVID affecting us? And, you know, our reporting so far has resulted in a nice windfall in terms of funding from the feds. So, you know, it's important to accurately report these effects.
We did have a local valuation, and I can remember 2, where they listed a partner, and then down in the discussion, they said they did not have an in-kind value because they were unable to utilize their services this year due to the pandemic. So that's a good thing to put in your discussion. Remember, there's always a discussion section where you can explain details of what's going on with you.
And one other thing about the discussion session, if you have an advisory committee for partnerships or some kind of governing committee,
And parents too.
parents, you know, put that in the discussion, because we will definitely take that into account in writing up the overall evaluation for the state. Okay.
We also collect qualitative data, and that's important because you never know who's going to look at your, even on a local level. You may have a board member that doesn't care about numbers, but they really like to hear the heart part of your program, the feel good part of your program. And one of the things we like to see, we have these in the local evaluation template, success stories. Try to be specific rather than general. It doesn't help much to say, all the kids really like our program. You know, that's not really a success story. A success story is a third grader who was constantly going to the office, and now he doesn't go anymore because the after school programs worked with him. That's a nice success story. On your best practices, you want to put down some approaches that help your program. What are you doing that you think is really a success of your program? Some of the things that people have mentioned is there are several programs that use a club approach, and they say that is a best practice that they like. Some people said one of their best practices is they provide transportation from the program to their home, and that way that helps their attendance. That's a good best practice, those type of things. Photos, we have problems with photos, and the problems are, one, there's not very many. You know, pretty much everybody has a phone these days that takes pictures. Take lots of photos. You know, in a previous life, I worked with a photographer taking pictures of a board of people, and talking to them earlier. You know, when you see a picture in like on a magazine cover of a model or whoever, they may take 1,000 pictures just to pick that one picture. So you can't take too many photos, and try to get students engaged in learning. There are some really cute pictures of a group of students standing in front of a sign, whether that sign be the school, a partnership sign, and that's nice, but that's posed. It's better to have a picture of students around a table building robot or playing chess or those type of things. We really want them engaged, or with a partner, talking to them about stuff, or they're at the fire station looking at the fire truck. Those type of photos are better. Try to pick your best ones and put those in there. It would help us a lot if you would also add a caption, so we really know what's going on. We try to follow the my mind just went blank, the 508 compliance, so that we put captions on those in the alt text so that blind people will know what the photo is. But if we don't know what it is, it's hard for us to put anything beside picture of students. You know, it'd be better to say picture of students playing chess, student, you know, those type of things. Please try to get some good quotes from everybody, from your partners, your parents, your teachers, your principal, your students. Sometimes it looks like the quotes, the only quote you got was maybe off of the survey. So try to have your staff be cognizant of that and maybe jot down a few quotes when students tell them stuff. You know, it doesn't have to be here today, class, we want everybody to write down a quote. Maybe a better way is, you know, Johnny told me today this is the best thing that's ever happened to him in his life. There's a nice quote right there. So try to do that. Okay. Any questions on those? Okay.
All right. I'm
I
not
just
seeing
want to
any.
say that was really helpful. So thank you. It was good to have these reminders as we're closing out the year. And so just thank you very much.
Well, we know that running a program is a full-time job, but then you have to do this too. This is part of the full-time job.
Yeah. All right. So that concludes our presentation today. Again, feel free to unmute and ask any follow-up questions that you might have, or use that chat feature. While I'm waiting for people to perhaps drop questions in the chat, once again, I'm going to remind you that we did record today's session. I will be uploading the recording, the slide deck, the chat file, all of if there are any supporting documents that we need to include, I'll get those all posted to the website. Those will live on iowa21cclc.com. And this actually goes under professional development and best practice webinars. But you'll be able to find it there. And as always, you can feel free to reach out to me for specific information. We do have contact information here. Now, I just realized that I neglected to include Caitlin's email in this list, so my apologies, Caitlin. If you want to drop your email into the chat box so that people can grab that, or again, I'm happy to make the connection to you with Caitlin if that's interesting to you.
Well,
There that is.
Crystal, Caitlin is actually, working, supporting children, and so we don't want her to answer all kind of random technical assistance questions. If you have a question, you should attend one of the evaluation committee meetings.
That is very true.
Caitlin will be happy to answer those, but the rest of us, you can email us all the time, and we're happy to field that. And so this is going to be an exciting time for us. And the new GEPRA, we're only going to be doing 2 times a year, and we're only going to do some of the measures in the summer, and then some of them we'll finish it up in December. So we won't be doing the same stuff 3 times a year anymore. So that will be a big relief for you guys at the local level, I'm sure.
Yeah. So, all right. It looks like we have a few comments in the chat, but they are just thank yous. So again, we hope that you enjoyed this presentation today. With that being said, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen, and I will go ahead and end the recording.